long it's gonna go, but all right. Yeah. So the FedEx guy, so I basically I saw I wasn't getting paid for I got paid for a week for doing nothing, really nothing, not. And so the FedEx guy, he had my work laptop, and for some weird reason, I just kept walking toward the front of my house, my apartment. I should have just walked away. I should just hopped on my bike and walked away. And then I'll just tell my contractor, hey, I haven't got my laptop. Hey, I haven't got my laptop. And then just keep getting paid. I was really thinking about going on vacation and just like traveling. Because even though they said I have to be in the office like 2 days a week, I was like, like just the way how they're organized and everything is, it's just like if I could just hide under the radar and stay here for six. And then I had another mentor too tell me like, if people could be at a job for like 6 months and not even write a single line of code. So and he knows people who managed to do that. So that's what I wish I did. And then even now, like it's good, right? Because all my managers, they're in New Jersey. I'm in New York, right? With like 200 people who really don't care. So, so it's really nice. So if I wanted to just like go on vacation until they really said, Mike, we need you to come in, I could do that. Um, but until then, right? Yeah. So, but
Yeah, I'm not a big I'm a big proponent of like leveraging the experience that you have, like the opportunities that you have in front of you, right? So you're working for the company, so why not learn stuff on their time, right? Like why not do stuff to improve your skill set, right? So that you're more valuable to the next company, right? Or to your own company, right? And so I'm not for the wasting time thing. I'm for like just leveraging the time the best way you can. And if there's neat and cool things that you can do in the interim and learn a whole bunch of stuff, that's the more knowledge that you'll have for the next thing, right? Versus sitting on your hands and not leveraging that time for something that could be very beneficial. But that's just me. Like that's, and I'm more of a more of the tech lead type that kind of pay attention, right, to that kind of thing. Like making sure that everybody's getting the most of their time. They're learning the things that they have interest in, and but at the same time, they're not. Hopefully, they're not doing stuff that they don't like too much. We always got to do something we don't like, but keeping that timeline right is pretty important. So I don't know. That's just me. I can't just sit on my hands. I don't. I guess shout out to the people that can, but I need to do something technical to make it worth my while. I need my mind to be stimulated to for it to be worth my while, right? No matter what the salary is. So yeah, um, I don't know. That's that's just my opinion, but
yeah, no,
everybody.
I feel the same way. I'm literally since yesterday. I've woken up from 10 o'clock, 8 o'clock, at 10 o'clock, and then I went to sleep at 11 o'clock. 12 hours straight every day coding, just not like 100 days of code. I'm not. I feel like coding right now feels like I'm playing my PS5, like my PlayStation. That's how it feels, right? So I always wanted to get in this state, right? I've been making YouTube videos. I had a channel, right? Oh, I'll also give you the channel so you can like, share, and subscribe, right? And if you have a channel, I'll definitely love to give it out as well, right? But I've been making just in one day I made 7 videos. One day I made 7 videos, posted on my channel, and I'm just doing so much. Like the amount of times I really need to automate. One application I always wanted to make was the automation of what you call automation of posting on social media sites. So I want one post because like basically right that live video post that you saw, I had to post it everywhere. I had to take some time, but I want to use an API. I want to use some. There has to be some software out there that allows me to just post once and then it appears everywhere. I mean, I don't want to pay for it. So if there's like a package out there in Python or even in like any, I'll learn any language to do it. right? Because I want to be able to post once and then upload anywhere and then see go everywhere. So I'd have to spend time posting stuff or paying.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
All right, so here I'll also send it to Facebook, my YouTube channel. Hopefully grow it, try to get to 1,000. Like I don't even know, right? How all these people like they have the same amount of videos as me, but they have like over 10,000 followers. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, I'm just now getting into starting to, you know, to YouTube and trying to load videos and trying to do things in a kind of organized fashion, right? Videos that kind of make sense and that kind of thing to share out knowledge. But yeah, I mean it takes a little dedication, but it sounds like if you got the right topics and the right things to discuss, you can grow your audience pretty quickly. So um, that's the goal. But I think overall, I'm not going to really focus in on how many people. I'm just going to focus in on actually doing it. And then like hopefully organically the audience will grow. Um, so we'll see.
Yeah, yeah. I just know, right? Because like the type of content, I know that what make gets the most views is cloud content. Like back in 2019, I was doing a lot of Google Cloud stuff, right? And that's when cloud was new. So whatever is hot and new, that's what I want to do. But it's really I don't get the luxury of doing that. I just say, okay, this is the project I'm working on. So, yeah. So
Yeah,
that
yeah, I agree with that. Cloud content is pretty like um hype right now. And like it just depends on if folks really want to. I think there are a lot of issues with some of the information that's going out there about like use of the cloud and things like that. And I think if we can have a really good person to refer to when it comes to that type of content, it'll be good, right? But I don't really want to just focus in on cloud. I really want to focus in on everything in a generic sense. But I'm just what I know, because and then as I learn new stuff, I'll just share that too. Like I'm not gonna. I don't think I'm gonna put a lot of time and energy into trying to figure out how do I get more people. I'm just gonna put out things that I know that have worked for me, and hopefully people will see value in it. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I think one thing. So definitely, wrapping up here. I so definitely you definitely know what to do, right, to make the videos, right? Just go in the Facebooks, say live coding session, and just code. That's it. And record it, right? So I'm recording. I'm using OBS Studio. You
Yeah, me
you, you
too.
have your recording software, right?
Yep, I use OBS Studio as well. Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so do that, hit record, and then good session, post it on YouTube, and that's that. And then let's grow following together. So that's all I see. So yeah, definitely the templates there. Um, Now and then like the last thing, I'll also send you my manager's information. So if you definitely want to help out with NIBLS, definitely could use your expertise, right? And like even so, and I think another thing I want to talk about Angular. I'm so glad it just the stars aligned when we met because Angular, Python. So it's like our community is like so. There's something I call the status quo, to
Yeah.
us the stuff, right? So it's the thing that all these beginners want to. They want to learn React. They want to learn the Node and the Mongo, all the JavaScript, and they want to go work for Fang. And I'm telling them it's like it's so status quo. It's so like tacky. It's like you have to that's not real programming. Like that's your first
Mhm.
step, but it's like but what I do like is that Angular is amazing framework, even better than React, right? I use Angular. I live and die by Angular, um, and I lived then die by doing more than just knowing JavaScript and JSON, which is what you see in these boot camps all the time. So it's definitely good. I definitely want to encourage because I see React all the time. React and even the jobs, right? So all this status quo technology, what I find is that the interviews, right, they're going to be status
Mm-hmm.
quo. So
Mm-hmm.
that means that are people getting like stuff like DSA, or they're just not, or there's like a certain set of topics in computer science that they just don't know well enough, and that's why they don't, or it's just the way they articulate themselves. Like, you know, all I see them because people like think it's DSA, but then when they hand in their resume and wonder why they're not getting jobs, like they
Mm.
put chef, stove chef, they put manager, they put security guard on the resume. I'm like, it's like, you know, it's people are not doing are they're just, I feel like people are being led down the wrong path, right? They're learning to code, but learning to code is not the only thing, right? If you,
Yeah, and I think, like I mentioned earlier, it's kind of about changing yourself from being a programmer and a coder to being an engineer, right? So really starting to understand the ins and outs of how something works, why it works that way, and then being able to use that to be able to identify issues, troubleshoot, make changes. And then also it's about not reinventing the wheel and keeping things extremely simple. Like I think when you can like if you can manage to do some of those things, it makes things a lot easier. Um, later on, right? When you're trying to get jobs or you're trying to understand what they're doing. Because even if they're using different technologies, if you have a basis of an engineering mindset, then you kind of understand some of the bases, right? And the basics. So you can kind of put together, okay, this is an API and this is a web app and this is what it's doing and this is how it communicates. And even though the API is written in Python or the API is written in Node and, with JavaScript and, the front end is Angular or the front end is React or the front end is Ionic or whatever, whatever you're using, right? It doesn't really matter, right? It's still it's still fundamentally using HTTP, right? And that's how it's communicating. It's using HTML, and that's how things are being written out, right? And you can kind of figure things out. So um, I think that having a good understanding of the baseline concepts of how all these things work together, no matter the technology or the stack, is a good basis to keep you going far because technology is going to change. And I've been in the industry for 16 years and it's changed so drastically. And is what's kept me is the foundation, right? I have some foundational elements. So I'm able to just use those foundational elements to figure out what do I need to search for? How do I find the information? And then how do I apply it? Right. So that's kind of always been my approach, and I encourage people to like get that foundation, like learn computer science concepts. Don't just go to the camp and just learn a particular technology. Like learn why I'm doing this. Learn about memory. Learn about stuff that's like vital to being able to write and engineer code. And then once you learn that stuff, you're unstoppable. They can put any technology in your face and you'll be able to learn it, right? Because you have a good baseline.
yeah, yeah. One of the things like hard for me is you know, when I'm working with a beginner, I don't know what they're thinking when I'm talking to them because I'm talking, and then the thing is I have to see what they see. Like, you know, beginners, you know what they say and what's going on in their head, two different things. I was working for Tal. He said that yeah he wants to do full stack, well like I'm doing. He wants to learn it all. So I said, all right, let's do it. Let's get on a session. I started talking, and he was like, whoa.
It's
It
a
was like the
lot.
Phantom Zone, huh?
It's a lot though. Like you gotta give them a little grace because full stack is hard. Um, that's why there's not a lot of people that are truly full stack because it's a really hard thing to learn, right? And when you find somebody that can do it all, they can write the API, they can build the database, right? They know how to connect everything, right? They can build the front end, right? They can do the whole thing. They can build the DevOps pipelines. They can build out the infrastructure as code, right? They know how to design and architect the app, right? So that it's secure and efficient. They can do it all. It's really hard to find that, truly, right? And if you start to introduce all those things to somebody at one time, they're going to be overwhelmed. It's almost like they need to start from the basics, right? How do I get data, right? Like, where do I generate the data? Let me learn about databases, right? Let me learn about APIs so I can understand how to fetch the data. Let me learn about HTTP, right? And then let me learn about web. And then if you start to piece those things up and then bring them all together, then over time you'll become full stack. But I think it's really hard for somebody to just be like, I want to learn how to be a full stack developer, and they're trying to do all those things at one time. It's just going to be a confusing time for them. That's just my
Yeah.
opinion. Like, I couldn't imagine, right? Like, I wasn't a full stack developer my first year. Like, no way, you know? Um, I built an application my first year by myself. You know, I was working at a startup and I built it by myself, and we were doing some cutting edge stuff. Like, there was no Google for the stuff that we were doing, but I still didn't consider myself full stack, right? Until I got um, more experience under my belt. So
Yeah, I say yeah, that's the thing. Like yeah, that's the thing. I usually tell people like, hey, take this course. I was like working with one person, like, and they just had to take a course. They just had to take a course, right? Because courses are going to organize that information in ways I can't. Um, right. That's another thing too, right? So
yeah,
yeah, yeah, and then like, yeah, how are yeah, so definitely like, one of the things, you, you know, also, right, is like this when it comes like to understanding, right, when disagreements, right, in the workplace, they come to
yeah,
misunderstanding. Well, I mean for us, right, there's one there's also right just being black right in the workplace right
yep.
there's always gonna be those situations for us right and then there's also misunderstandings right I haven't dealt so I haven't dealt with situations in the workplace. I dealt with the situation in the boot camp, a lot of racist, very racist, and I really wish I kind of closed out on it earlier. So definitely finding a group like this for me, right, is like okay, this is where I go. Like so, if something happened at my
Absolutely.
job, like I come here. I wish I come here. Like before, at that point in time in my life, right, I didn't know about all of our resources, but now that I do know, right, there's that. How do you go about what are solutions that you have?
Yeah, so I think over my career, I mean, I've definitely experienced a lot of issues. Me being a woman has always been a sticking point, and then me being African American, of course, that's always like gonna stick out, right? And so I've always been the thumb that sticks out of everybody in the crowd. And I've been okay with that. And for the most part, I've had, situations happen, where it's disrespectful, right? And the one thing that I've been able to do and just to keep my sanity is I just try to stay the same, meaning like I'm going to be Emmy, I'm going to be patient and, nice and helpful and, resourceful. Um, and I just always just let my work speak for itself. There's only been one occasion where I had an issue with a person of a different race that it was bad. Like it was really bad. Like she did some things that was just really nasty in front of our architecture forum, directly to me, and it became a big deal. And when I tried to talk to her and with alongside another coworker about it, she was crying, and it was just it was probably the most horrible thing that ever happened. But again, I just remain the same, right? Like, just, hey, I'm Emmy, I'm consistent, I am resourceful, I can get the work done, right? And so that's kind of what's kept me this whole time. And also working from home, because I've been working from home for about almost 10 years. So I've been at home for a long time, and it for me, it really helps me with dealing with that kind of office mess. Try not to have too many calls, and try to just stay out of the crap that goes on. That doesn't mean the perception's not there. That doesn't mean people are thinking certain things about me, but I can't control that, right? So I always look at, well, what can I control? And I can control my reputation, and I can control my work and my output. And so that's what I've always focused in on, and it's taken me very far. Um, and I know if there's environments that are toxic and that are a lot worse, I would just encourage people to leave, right? Like, those are not healthy environments for you to be in. It's not conducive to your growth, so you need to leave the situation. But most of the time, if you stay on top of you know making sure you generate good output, and making sure you're not the one that's you know going back and forth with people and stuff, then it's fine. And when people don't agree with your path or your design, I always just it's always logic for me, right? So it's a difference between logic and preference, right? So you can prefer something to be a certain way, but logically, does it make sense? That's the main thing. And when I was at EA in enterprise architect, I had to do a lot of that because I was making decisions based on how everyone would do their job. All the software engineers in the company, all of the database administrators, all the folks in operations, all the folks in IT, making those decisions that would impact them, right? So making sure you use logic in your decision making is important, and not feeling and not preference, because who cares about that, right? Like, if that's your preference, go for it, as long as it doesn't violate a core principle, right? So it squashed a lot of arguments because I didn't really care about some of the stuff that people were discussing, because I felt like you're still in the guardrail, right? So do what you want, have the freedom to innovate, right? But when you get outside of this guardrail, that's when I'm going to say something, right? So that squashes a lot of arguments most of the time too.
Yeah, my preference is like an all black company. Like I'm being serious, right? So like, all this is what I really want, right? Our people. That's all I want to see. I want to be able to go to the office and just see nothing but us everywhere I go, right? That's one of the things that I definitely try to work with. Like even in the startup that we have, NIBLS, always try to grab our own, right? That's what we're seeing. So the founder, he's black, I'm black, and then I also have some developers, right? Who come all different backgrounds. I only try to get our, because we definitely need more of that. We definitely want to be
Mhm.
that inspiration. One thing I wanted to say, I want to go back to that, is that I try to get myself a watch, right? That's what I want to try to do now, because recording stuff, right, is so important. Even you can even see it with police that if you have recording on, right,
Mhm.
you don't have your camera, because like when someone does something, you're not ready to record, right? You're just not ready to record. Like it's terrible that you always have to be diligent. But I think one of the ways you could do it is get a watch. I'm looking at trying to get a Samsung watch, um, So some of these cheap watches and then hit the record. I haven't been able to find one. So if you know of any, let me know. And if you're typing in the comments, like I'm not in the Google Meet. I'm like all over my computer. So just be like, hey, I put something in the comments. But yeah, watches are one thing, right? So that's important. But like another thing, to avoid all of this, I really just want to start to make I definitely make our own company, right? And just not name it Black, like just give it a regular name, like Windmill Code, right? Is an organization. It's not registered yet, but basically what it's all about. And we did one project with like people in the community, but it's just going to be our people, right? And it's going to be like a company that, right, supports things like get rid of all the like the bad rap music out there and really just supports us in general, right? Because if that's power, right? So it's all about power, right? So the company, so people recognize power. Power comes respect, right? Because I think with the right, because they know that, okay, if this group of people have power, then I want to think twice before I do something, right? But most of the times, right, people do things because they don't think twice. They think that, okay, but I think so. When I think about it, all racism, all in general, like I think it's a biological thing. I don't know if it's a. I think it's just I think it's a disease that needs a cure, right? That's the only thing I see, right? Because it takes a lot of effort to hate, to like
Yeah.
to like you catch someone off guard, and it's weird. It's almost weird. I even thought about, okay, let me walk up to this person and scream in their face right now, like they scream at me, or let me just go on the way and make a scene and try to get
Yep.
this person in trouble. And it's really hard. You can't get up to do it. It takes a lot of hate. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of energy and emotion to do something like that. And
Mhm.
only thing that I could think of is just disease. Is just disease. So like I'm asking for myself, there needs to be a cure, right? Is there going to be a research for a cure to racism? Because I feel like because we're biological at the end of the day, right? If we're given a cure, if we're given medicine, right, we react. So I feel that it's being about social, like a lot of things I kind of see in the world. It doesn't. But I think one thing is like, okay, if there's racism, right, then then it is a cure. But I think even so, what I want to see in the media is that, okay, racism's biological. So then people say, okay, there needs to be a cure. But
Yep.
that's
Yeah.
my take on the whole thing. That's my
Yeah.
take. It's definitely terrible, but I definitely feel that you know we have medicine for a reason, and maybe that's what's needed.
Yeah, absolutely. I meant to tell you the other thing that happened to me that was racist is one time I went to this I was working in power plants and stuff a lot over the last like decade, right? Nuclear power plants and digitizing their processes and creating all kinds of cool things for them so that they can be more efficient and do things faster, right? And I was at one of the power plants and I ran like the entire mobility side of, on the nuclear side of at Duke Energy. And so I was there doing some testing, against some of the access points and things like that they put up and making sure things was working. And we were adding some new stuff. So I needed to make sure that all that stuff was going to work at one of the power plants that's near my house. So went up there and was doing some work there, and they, I guess they had some stuff before I was there because I always work from home, so I never really go anywhere. But they had some stuff to go, like some of the iPads and stuff like that went missing. And the first person they looked at was me, and I'm not even there ever. Like literally, I work from home 98% of the time. So I was like 2 seconds away from reporting it to HR because I told my manager about it. And I said, hey, I'm just giving you the heads up that I'm reporting this to HR because there were some things that was insinuated, and I don't like the way this made me feel. And I felt like the only reason why this person said this to me is because of my race. And they stopped me in my tracks. Please don't. Like, and got the guy to like try to apologize. I didn't really want to talk to him. I never really talked to him again. And he wasn't Caucasian. He was like Indian or something like that. But he was with other people that were, um, Caucasian, and so it just, at that point, I think I was with the company for like, I don't know, 6 years, something like that. And I'm like, oh my God, like, like everything I've done, like all my work that I've done, why would I do that? Like, I make okay money. Like, why would I do that? Like, it doesn't even make sense. So, um, yeah, I mean, I agree. It takes a lot of hate out of somebody's heart, or just um, inherent things that they just believe, right? That they've believed all their life, right? About a certain group of people. And it comes out in the workplace, and it can make the workplace extremely toxic. Um, and you have to decide if you're going to continue to deal with that, or, you know, um, if you take your work elsewhere, or you create your own company and you do it that way. You have to make those decisions. So
Yeah, yeah, you definitely want to highlight the point, right? Believe all their lives, right? Is another thing, right? Is another
hmm
thing. Don't definitely right you hear it. So I think so. Yeah, one of the things I realized is that I think I was with a family friend talking to the kids. And I'm like, and I kind of said, do you know what other kids are telling? Other parents are telling their kids? They tell about our people, right? They tell them that we're dangerous for all sorts of things. Like
yeah.
I had friends that I know just people in middle school, right?
hmm
They seem to be they're going to be there for life, but after high school, that's it, right? Then I don't even hear from them again, right? So the phone stops working and all that, and yeah, it's a terrible feeling, So it's like, I just got to tell, like, so definitely, saying, hey, be good to everyone is going to get us in a state where when someone does something wrong to us, right?
hmm
Right,
hmm
all that it's occurrence. It's like a cycle. It's biological as a while, right? If you keep on saying, hey, it's
hmm
okay to hit me, right? It's okay to hit, right? So like any opportunity that you get, right, you have to report them just to let them know that, hey, because it's just not only about you, right? It's about the race. It's like, hey, this is our race. Treat our racers with respect. If you do this, this is how we respond, and this is how we're going to respond. And we're not black people. We're people, and we're all equal in this. So, right, that's what that's why I see. So that every opportunity I get, yeah, and sometimes it's really stressful because you have to take some time out of your day to make the report, right? And it's microaggression because you don't know whether it levies such a response, but it always levies such a response, and then you always have the support group here in all these Facebook groups to post about it, right?
hmm
So
hmm
that you could make the response that puts you in the winning side, right? So yeah, that's what that's my response to that.
Yeah, it's tough. When you don't have allies that look like you in your space, it's just,
Oh, now you do. Eh, That's a good one.
yeah.
That's why I always say I was like talking to my manager. Like he said, you just wanted to grab people off flood. I'm like, no, we're going to grab our people for the project, right? If it's not ours, then we're not doing it because, I don't. I definitely don't want to be in the situation where he's taken advantage of, right? Because people that and I feel that I mean I'll definitely I sent you his LinkedIn as well, so definitely get to talk to him. But like people such like him could get really taken advantage of, and it's something I want to avoid. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So and then that even goes into interviews too, right? So like when we're interviewing, right? And especially negotiations, right?
hmm
It's like a car. It's like they have to think about it when I talk to people, and I'm telling them, don't put if you graduated, just say bachelor's degree. Don't say bachelor's of lawyer, or something like that. I don't even know how law works. So I'm sorry that like people are like I'm gonna put that. And people put and these beginners put that there, and they're wondering why they're not getting hired. I'm like, think of it as a car sale. Like if I'm trying, I just bought a Hyundai. TMI. I don't want to. I want to make this public, not too much information about my life, right? So basically, you go and look at a car, right? And you're the car salesman, right? So like the person, what I always tell them is like, you interview for the job, you're the car salesman, right? The recruiter is the person who come and buy the car. You want
Mm-hmm.
to talk about the limited edition features, the sunroof, the sound system, the heated seats, right? But if they don't look at the engine, you don't talk to them about the engine. If they have a question, say this is on all cars. I've never seen on a car where they don't have the VIN on the passenger side door. Like
Mm-hmm.
any
Mm-hmm.
opportunity, right? You want to talk. You want to take them to your deep end. You don't want to go in their deep end. You want to talk so much that when it comes time to look at the engine, then they don't, right? Because they're because you control the conversation, right? So not
Mm-hmm.
controlling the conversation is putting chef on the on the resume, or putting security guard on the resume. So like when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to resumes and interviews, right? What's your advice to the beginner?
Most of the time when I talk to somebody that, is initially starting to, or want to get a job, I always look at it as if I'm looking to hire them. If I'm giving somebody advice, right? I'm like, okay, what in your resume stands out that would make me want to hire you, right? Like, because I'm going to have a certain need, and honestly, I probably are not going to care about most of the stuff on your resume except for the stuff that I need you to do. So, like, what are those things, right? If you're talking to somebody really technical, what do they want to see? And I typically tell people, like, when it comes to your resume, make sure you list out the technologies that you work with, and not just the technologies that you work with on your own, but especially the stuff that you've done at previous positions. Even if you can put on your resume individual technologies based on position, that'll be great, because then that'll tell me kind of a little bit more about the tech stack that you've worked with, right? And really get specific about some of the things that you've done, right? Make sure that your resume clearly states what you have done, not just the tech stack, right? So I really want to understand, did you build an app? Did you help build an app, right? Like, but if you don't put it, I won't know, right? And that could mean that your resume is passed over because you didn't talk about the work that you've actually done or contributed towards, right? So I just tell people to, like, make sure you have that stuff. Um, I don't really necessarily look at degree, but I do think it's important. I've gotten jobs because of degrees. So, like, I get it. Like, you want to put that, right? Because in most cases, people kind of care about what your education is. If you have a degree, great. If you don't, that's fine. If you went to a boot camp, that's fine, right? But kind of talk about it a little bit in your resume so people can understand your baseline. And if you're just self-taught, then great. Like, that's good too. Um, but that's usually what I tell people, because that's how I look at resumes, right? I don't care about, the other stuff really. I kind of care about where your experience is and then what your interests are. And if you have a way of being able to put that on the resume, then and communicate that effectively, then it's a win, right? And likely you can get the interview. And then most of the time I tell them, like, once you get the interview, um, just be prepared. I like to give technical interviews, but not difficult technical interviews. I like to give foundational interviews. So, I want to know that the person that I'm working with understands some foundational stuff. So, as long as you understand the foundational stuff, then everything else is icing, right? Like, and if you can talk with me technically about a subject, and we can have a conversation and we have banter back and forth about it, that's good too, right? Like I don't really, and I know everybody hires differently, but I really look for the excitement in somebody. You know, I like to hear them, have interest in it, and they're not just in it for the money, right? I like to hear that, they're doing things on the side, or they've tried things out on their own, or there's just certain things that I look for. And then I love to hear when I ask the question about troubleshooting and how do you figure something out. There's just a certain answer that I'm looking for when I'm interviewing somebody on that part. And the main answer that I'm looking for is they've taken the correct steps to be able to get to a point where they're asking their teammates. So many people don't want to go down that road, right? They rather suffer in silence and work on something for 2 weeks, and you have somebody on the team that could have helped you for 5 minutes and you could have been complete, right? And we could have saved a lot of time. So I really, when it comes to that troubleshooting question, I really look for collaboration. Like I want somebody that's collaborative, that's willing to work with the team. And it's just important. But I also look for people to say, hey, I'm going to Google, and I'm going to try to find it before I go to that person, right? I'm going to try my best to try to figure it out. And then after some time, has expired, I'm going to go ahead and pull in the team and say, hey, anybody done this? Can somebody help me? Can we pair program? Can we collaborate? Right? Because if somebody's not collaborative, I don't want them on my team. And that's just for me personally, just because we're not going to be effective. We're not going to be able to work together. We're not going to communicate. Um, and that's problematic, right? Like we're not going to make progress if we can't work together and collaborate. So that's kind of what I look for. But that's just me personally, because I've hired very technical people on like the team. I know you look for different things depending on the role, right? Um, but that's kind of what I look for when I bring somebody on, no matter what their experience level is.
Yeah, that's that the conversations I have, right? All different type of conversations. Some people, some leads, they want to talk to you. No, because it's really interesting because I was interviewed with Twilio, and then I interviewed with PayPal, and they wanted to talk. So the topics were they talking about security, and they were talking about internationalization. Those topics at that point in my career, so they wanted to go for an hour talking. Right at that point in my career, I couldn't. Maybe right now I'll better than at that time before, right? But I could talk, but I don't think I can make it to an hour talking only about internationalization. You have to talk an hour about full stack, right? That's where you get me. So now, but like I definitely that's how, and I definitely feel that like most tech leads, like they want to have that conversation. They want the interview to stop and they want the podcast to begin like we're having it right now. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably do that in my next interview. It's like, hey, can I record this session? It's really good to interesting session here, right? So you talk a lot and right, and then really, and then but it's kind of unfortunate. Sometimes I think the interview went well. I think some interview went well, and then it kind of and then I kind of know, because it's I think, but like I know that these interviews, right, when you're having that conversation,
Yeah.
right, you always want the best practice, right? Like so if they're saying like, hey, I had one interview, this is a job I really wanted. It was like commercial real estate, that I said, but I was like, hey, I'm a full stack person, but they only wanted Angular. The tech lead, he said I only wanted Angular, so I mentioned full stack, and they didn't even follow. And then they gave me a practice project, so I overdid the practice project, right? They wanted to see NGRX. I did everything. I added everything I could add. I could say hire me, and then I didn't get the job, right? So definitely, when these conversations, I know one thing, right, is to talk as lot as you can, right? And then like, but I think so. This person wasn't. So, but I definitely met all people. So like the job I got Wells Fargo, they just basically asked me hard question about Angular, and I answered them. They didn't want to really get to talk. Like there wasn't. They wanted to talk, but they weren't the talking type.
Yeah.
So, it, yeah. So, but I just answer all the question. I get the job just like that. People wanted some people, but I definitely know for those people, right? I've seen all types of interview. I think I've seen three types, but not all of them. But I definitely know for those people interviewing that 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 they want to approach it as if you were interviewing them, right? You want to be very engaging, right? You really want to go, what you want to get that, you want to turn the interview into a podcast type approach. So yeah.
Yeah, I always had prepared like some baseline. I always prepare like baseline questions depending on the role and that I ask everybody. And then, of course, the troubleshooting question. And then we just go into discussion mode. They can ask me stuff, I can ask them stuff. If they want to talk about tech stuff, we could talk about it, right? Because some people are very interested in like what they're walking into, right? So giving them the opportunity to really understand what that looks like in that technical, sphere, and that architecture landscape, helping them get a preview of that is usually really helpful to know if they're even still interested in like getting the job. So I don't know, that's kind of my style. But I don't want it to be, sometimes people make the interview process like really hard. And I just don't understand like why. You know what I mean? Like why make it so hard? Like it shouldn't be that hard. Like if the person has the skills, you'll know right away. And they don't have to memorize a framework or any of that for you to know, right? If they know how to get to an answer, that's half the battle. Like, you know what I mean? Like they can get to it. Like I don't want to test them on that. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of the times I like to see people, I like to interview people on how I wish I could be interviewed, if you know what I mean. Like if this was me getting this interview, how would I like it? Right. To be a little bit more empathetic and kind of put myself in their shoes and not make it too difficult, but not make it too easy, right? I don't need you to show off. I need to validate that at least some of the things you're saying, right? And then the rest, I'm sure you can figure out if you have the right foundation. Yep. But I know it is late. But if at any time you want to, um, you know, have some kind of session or something, I'm definitely open to it. You got my info. I'm around. I'll be in the group as well, and we can go from there.
All right, so let me let's make this ending official, right? Trying to Emmie, it was a pleasure, right? Global technical lead, architect, deployment automation at Dell Technologies, right? It's a great pleasure having this podcast with you, right? And definitely have a good evening, have a good night. All right, thank
You
you, thank
too.
you, thank you.
You too. Good luck.